The cargo ship shook as it landed on Kepler Station. Jiwan grabbed his tool bag and looked out the small window. The station was huge, made of dark metal that gleamed under the distant sun. Strange towers rose from its surface, glowing with blue light. "Last stop," called the pilot. "Good luck down there, human." Jiwan stepped off the ship onto the landing pad. The air felt thick and warm. Around him, tall alien beings moved boxes and equipment. They had pale blue skin and long arms. Their faces looked almost human, but their eyes were larger and completely black. These were the Villani. Jiwan had read about them during his trip here. They were supposed to be very smart and powerful. Their empire controlled many worlds across the galaxy. But something seemed wrong. The Villani workers moved slowly. They breathed hard, like they were in pain. Around their arms and legs, metal bands gleamed with pulsing lights. The bands looked tight, pressing into their skin. A human man walked up to Jiwan. He was short and round with gray hair. "You must be the new mechanic," he said. "I'm Hyunwoo, the station overseer." "That's me," Jiwan said. "When do I start?" Hyunwoo laughed, but it didn't sound happy. "Right now, follow me." They walked through long hallways. The walls were covered with pipes and cables. Everything looked old and dirty. Strange sounds came from behind the walls, grinding, hissing, and banging. "This place runs on old human technology," Hyunwoo explained. "The Villani don't like to work with basic machines. They think it's beneath them. That's why they need humans like us." Jiwan saw more Villani workers in the halls. They all wore the same metal bands. They all moved like they were hurt. Some leaned against walls to rest. Others breathed in short, quick breaths. "What are those bands for?" Jiwan asked. Hyunwoo's face went pale. He looked around, then whispered, "Don't ask about those. Just do your job and stay quiet." They reached a large room full of machines. Steam rose from big pipes. Lights blinked on control panels. The noise was very loud. "This is the main power room," Hyunwoo said. "These machines keep the station running. Air, water, heat, gravity. Everything depends on them." A Villani female walked up to them. She was tall and thin with long silver hair. The metal bands on her arms glowed brighter as she moved. Jiwan could see they were tight, cutting into her blue skin. "This is Nari," Hyunwoo said. "She helps run the power systems. She'll show you what needs fixing." Nari looked at Jiwan with her big black eyes. "Welcome," she said. Her voice was soft but tired. "Many things are broken here." She led him to a large machine with spinning wheels and moving parts. "This one makes the air we breathe," she said. "It stops working every few hours. We have to hit it to make it start again." Jiwan looked at the machine. It was old human technology, probably 50 years old. "Have you tried checking the power connections?" he asked. Nari shook her head. "We are not allowed to do deep repairs. Only humans can touch the important parts." That seemed strange to Jiwan. The Villani were supposed to be very advanced. Why couldn't they fix simple machines? He opened his tool bag and got to work. The problem was easy to find. The power cable was loose. It took him 5 minutes to fix it. The machine started running smoothly. "Amazing," Nari said. She looked surprised and happy. "You fixed it so quickly." "It was nothing," Jiwan said. "Just a loose wire." As they worked together that day, Jiwan noticed more things. The machines were all designed to break down often. Parts that should last years were made from cheap materials that wore out in weeks. It was like someone wanted the equipment to need constant repair. Nari helped him understand how each system worked. She was very smart and knew a lot about the station. But every few minutes, she would stop and press her hand to her head. The metal bands would pulse brighter and she would wince in pain. "Are you okay?" Jiwan asked after the third time. Nari looked around nervously. "I am fine," she said quickly. "Just tired." But Jiwan could see she was not fine. None of the Villani workers were fine. They all struggled with pain from those metal bands. At the end of the workday, Hyunwoo found Ji-won in the power room. "How did it go?" he asked. "Good," Ji-won said. "I fixed 6 machines today, but I have a question." Hyunwoo's face went serious. "What? Why are all these machines designed to break? And why can't the Villani fix simple problems themselves?" Hyunwoo looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Because that's how the Empire wants it," he whispered. "They keep the Villani workers weak and the humans busy. Everyone stays in their place." "What about those metal bands?" Ji-won asked. "I told you not to ask about those," Hyunwoo said. His voice was sharp now. "Listen to me carefully, do your job. Fix the machines, don't ask questions, don't cause trouble. The Empire has ways of dealing with people who cause trouble." That night, Ji-won lay in his small room thinking about what he had seen. The Villani were clearly suffering. Those metal bands were hurting them somehow, and the broken machines seemed designed to keep everyone busy and distracted. He thought about Nari's face when he had fixed the air machine so easily. She had looked amazed, like she had forgotten that problems could be solved quickly and simply. Something was very wrong on Kepler Station. Ji-won didn't know what yet, but he was determined to find out. Tomorrow he would start looking for answers. Outside his window, he could see Villani workers moving through the station corridors. Even in the dim light, he could see the glow of their metal bands. Whatever those devices were, they were the key to understanding this place. Ji-won closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but his mind kept working, thinking about loose wires and simple solutions. Sometimes the biggest problems had the easiest fixes. Maybe that was true here too. Ji-won woke up early the next morning. He wanted to explore the station before starting work. He walked through empty hallways, looking at everything carefully. The station was bigger than he had thought. There were living areas, workrooms, storage spaces, and machine rooms. Everything was connected by a maze of corridors and tunnels. In the early morning light, he could see more details. The walls were covered with sensors and cameras. Red lights blinked everywhere, watching. The Empire was keeping track of everyone and everything. He found the main cafeteria where workers ate their meals. A few early Villani workers sat at tables eating slowly. Their metal bands glowed softly in the dim light. Ji-won noticed that the bands had small screens on them, showing numbers and symbols. One young Villani female sat alone at a corner table. She looked very tired and thin. Her bands were glowing brighter than the others, and she kept touching her head like it hurt. Ji-won got some food and sat down near her. "Good morning," he said softly. She looked up, surprised. "Oh, hello. You are the new human mechanic." "Yes, I'm Ji-won. What's your name?" "Minji," she said. "I work in the engineering section." "Are you feeling okay?" Ji-won asked. "You look tired." Minji's eyes went wide with fear. She looked around quickly. "I'm fine," she said. "Very fine. No problems." But as she spoke, her bands pulsed brighter. She made a small sound of pain and closed her eyes tight. "Those bands hurt you, don't they?" Ji-won said quietly. Minji stood up fast, almost falling over. "I cannot talk about that," she whispered. "It is forbidden." She hurried away, leaving her food on the table. Ji-won finished his breakfast and went to find Nari. He had more questions about the power systems, and she seemed to trust him a little. He found her in a small room filled with control panels. She was staring at a screen showing power levels throughout the station. Her face looked very concentrated, but he could see pain in her eyes. "Good morning, Nari," he said. She turned around and smiled a little. "Good morning, Ji-won. I'm glad you are here." 3 more machines stopped working during the night. They spent the morning fixing broken equipment. Every repair was simple: loose connections, worn parts, or blocked pipes, things that should have been caught and fixed before they broke. They worked. Ji-won watched Nari carefully. Every few minutes, her metal bands would pulse brighter. When they did, she would stop what she was doing and breathe deeply until the pain passed. "Nari," he said during one of these moments, "can I ask you something?" She looked nervous. "What?" "How long have you worked here?" 8 years. she said. And you've worn those bands the whole time? Nari's face went pale. Please don't ask about them. But they hurt you. I can see it. She looked around to make sure they were alone. Of course they hurt, she whispered. That's what they are designed to do. What are they for? Nari was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, they keep us weak. They stop us from using our natural abilities. They make sure we cannot fight back. Fight back against what? The Empire. My people were not always slaves, Jiwan. Long ago we were free. We could do amazing things with energy and matter. We could speak to each other with our minds. We were powerful. What happened? We tried to resist when the Empire came to our worlds. We lost. As punishment, they put these bans on all the workers. They said it was to make us humble and obedient. Jiwan looked at the metal bands more carefully. They were smooth and seamless, with no obvious way to remove them. Small lights moved along their surface in patterns he didn't understand. Have you ever tried to take them off? He asked. Nari shook her head quickly. Impossible. They are locked. With advanced Imperial technology. Only special machines can remove them. And those machines are on the Empire's home worlds. Even trying to tamper with them sets off alarms. They went back to work, but Jiwan's mind was racing. He had spent his whole life working with machines and electronics. He knew that even the most advanced technology followed basic rules. That afternoon he was fixing a water recycling system when Hyunwoo came to check on him. How are you settling in? Hyunwoo asked. Fine, Jiwan said. But I have more questions about the way things work here. Hyunwoo sighed. What now? These machines break down too often. It's like they're designed to fail. They are, Hyunwoo said. The Empire wants humans to stay busy with repairs. It keeps us from having time to think about other things. And the Villani bands? What about them? They're torture devices, aren't they? Hyunwoo's face went hard. Listen to me very carefully, he said. Yes, those bands cause pain. Yes, they keep the Villani weak. But there is nothing we can do about it. The Empire has ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. If we cause trouble, they will kill everyone on this station. But surely someone could figure out how to remove the bands. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. The Empire's technology is too advanced. No one understands how those bands work. They've tried everything. Cutting tools, energy weapons, electromagnetic pulses, nothing works. That night, Jiwon couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Nari and Hyunwoo had told him. The Villani were suffering, and everyone had given up, hope of helping them. But Jiwon was not ready to give up. He had always believed that every problem had a solution. You just had to look at it the right way. He got out of bed and turned on his small work light. From his tool bag, he took out a basic electromagnetic field detector. It was a simple device that every mechanic carried. Tomorrow, he would get a closer look at those metal bands. Maybe everyone was thinking about the problem wrong. Maybe the solution wasn't advanced technology at all. Maybe it was something much simpler. 3 days later, everything changed when Inspector Donghyuk arrived from the Empire's capital ship. Jiwon was working in the engine room when alarms started ringing throughout the station. All the Villani workers immediately stopped what they were doing and stood perfectly still. Their metal bands began glowing much brighter than usual. Imperial inspection, Hyunwoo said, running into the room. Everyone needs to look busy and productive. No talking to the inspector unless he speaks to you first. Jiwon watched through the window as a small, fast ship landed on the main platform. A tall Villani in gold robes stepped out, followed by 2 guards in black armor. This had to be Inspector Donghyuk. The inspector walked through the station like he owned it, which Jiwon realized he basically did. Workers bowed low as he passed. Their bands glowed so bright it hurt to look at them. In the main work area, the inspector stopped to watch the Villani workers. Jiwon could see them struggling. The bright glow from their bands was causing them terrible pain. Several workers fell to their knees, unable to stand. Pathetic, the inspector said loudly. These workers are lazy and weak. Increase the pain levels. One of his guards pressed buttons on a small device. Immediately, the workers' bands became even brighter. A young female named So-young collapsed completely, crying out in pain. "Get up," the inspector commanded. "Work harder." So-young tried to stand but fell again. The pain was too much for her. "Useless," the inspector said. He turned to his guard. "Mark her for punishment duty. Maybe a week in the pain chambers will teach her to work properly." Ji-won felt sick watching this. He wanted to help, but Hyunwoo grabbed his arm. "Don't," Hyunwoo whispered. "There's nothing you can do." The inspection lasted 3 hours. By the end, half the Villani workers could barely stand. They leaned against walls and each other, breathing hard from the pain. When the inspector's ship finally left, the bands returned to their normal glow. But the workers looked exhausted and defeated. That evening, Ji-won found Nari sitting alone in a storage room. She was holding her head in her hands, still recovering from the inspection. "Are you okay?" he asked. She looked up with tears in her big black eyes. "So-young is my cousin," she said. "She's only 20 years old. Now they will take her to the pain chambers because she couldn't stand up while being tortured." Ji-won sat down beside her. "There has to be something we can do." "There is nothing," Nari said. "We have tried everything over the years. These bands cannot be removed." "Can I look at yours more closely?" Ji-won asked. "Maybe I can see something others missed." Nari held out her arm. Ji-won took out his electromagnetic field detector and scanned the metal band. The device beeped and showed readings on its small screen. "Interesting," he said. "What?" "This band is putting out a very strong electromagnetic field. But the pattern is strange. It's not random. There's a regular pulse every few seconds." He moved the detector around the band, checking different spots. Near what looked like a small seam in the metal, the readings changed dramatically. "There's something different here," he said, pointing to the seam. "The electromagnetic field is much weaker in this spot." Nari looked confused. "What does that mean?" Ji-won pulled out a small flashlight and looked at the seam more carefully. It was so thin he had almost missed it, but it was definitely there, a line where two pieces of metal joined together. "I think this might be a locking mechanism," he said. "But everyone says the locks are impossible to break." "Maybe," Ji-won said. "But what if they're not using some super advanced technology? What if they're using something simple but they've made it look complex?" He thought about all the broken machines he had fixed over the past few days. Each one had looked complicated and advanced, but the actual problems had been basic: loose wires, blocked pipes, worn parts. "Can I try something?" he asked. Nari looked scared. "What if you set off an alarm? Then we'll deal with it. But if we don't try, nothing will ever change." Nari thought for a long moment, then nodded. Ji-won took a small tool from his bag, a basic electromagnetic pulse generator that he used to clear stuck relays in machines. He held it near the seam on Nari's band. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. He pressed the button. The tool sent out a small electromagnetic pulse, just like the ones he used to fix jammed machinery. Nothing happened for a moment. Then there was a tiny click so quiet they almost missed it. The band fell open and dropped to the floor. Nari stared at her free arm in complete shock. "How?" she whispered. Ji-won picked up the band and looked at it. "It's just a simple electromagnetic lock," he said, "the kind of thing we use on basic security boxes. They made it look advanced with all the lights and displays, but underneath it's just a standard locking mechanism." Suddenly Nari gasped and grabbed her head, but this time it wasn't from pain. "I can feel it," she said in wonder. "My abilities are coming back." She held out her hand and the lights in the room began to glow brighter. She was controlling the electrical current with her mind. "Amazing," Ji-won said. "We have to tell the others," Nari said excitedly. "We have to free everyone." "Wait," Ji-won said. "We need to be careful. If we free everyone at once, the Empire will notice immediately. We need a plan." Nari nodded, her eyes shining with hope for the first time since Ji-won had met her. You're right, she said. But Jiwon, do you realize what you've done? You've found the key to freeing my entire people. Jiwon looked at the simple tool in his hand. Sometimes the biggest problems really did have the simplest solutions. Over the next week, Jiwon and Nari worked in secret. They could only free 1 or 2 workers each day, and only when they were sure no cameras or guards could see them. The first person they freed was Minji, the young engineering worker Jiwon had met in the cafeteria. When her bands fell away, she cried for 10 minutes straight. I had forgotten what it felt like to think clearly, she said. The bands don't just cause pain, they make our minds foggy. Everything has been like a bad dream for years. Each freed Villani had the same reaction. First shock, then joy, then anger, as they realized how long they had been suffering needlessly. But they were all careful to act normal during work hours. They put their bands back on loosely so they would look the same to the cameras. Only when they were alone and safe did they remove them completely. By the end of the week, they had freed 12 Villani workers. That was when Nari told Jiwon about the resistance. There are others who have never given up hope, she said. They meet in secret in the old mining tunnels under the station. Their leader is a worker named Taehyung. He's been planning for years, waiting for a chance like this. That night, Nari led Jiwon through maintenance tunnels to a hidden entrance in the station's lower levels. They crawled through narrow spaces and climbed down old service ladders. Finally, they emerged in a large cave that had been carved out of the asteroid's rock. About 30 Villani workers were gathered in the cave. They all wore their metal bands, but Jiwon could see the suffering in their faces. When they saw Nari without her bands, they gasped. A tall, strong-looking male stepped forward. I am Taehyung, he said. Nari told us what you discovered. Is it really possible? See for yourself, Jiwon said. He held up his electromagnetic pulse tool. For the next hour, Jiwon removed bands from every Villani in the cave. Each time he watched their faces change from pain to wonder to determination. When the last band fell away, the cave filled with light as the freed Villani began using their natural abilities. They could control electricity, manipulate matter at the molecular level, and communicate through direct mind contact. My people, Taehyung said, speaking both aloud and through telepathy to everyone at once. For 40 years we have waited. Now the time has come to act. He turned to Jiwon. Human friend, you have given us the greatest gift possible, hope. But now we need your help with something else. What? There are over 300 Villani workers on this station. We need to free them all at the same time during the next shift change when security is lightest. But we cannot do it with just one small tool. Jiwon thought about the problem. I can make more tools, he said. The electromagnetic pulse generators are not complicated. Give me 2 days and I can build 20 of them. Will that be enough? If we organize properly, yes. We can split into teams and work through the station systematically. Over the next 2 days, Jiwon worked frantically in his workshop. He took apart spare parts from broken machines and rebuilt them into simple pulse generators. Each one was no bigger than his hand, but they could break the electromagnetic locks on the bands. Meanwhile, the freed Villani spread through the station, secretly identifying trusted workers and mapping out security patterns. They used their restored telepathic abilities to communicate without being detected by the Empire's surveillance systems. Nari's sister Jisoo was among those they contacted. When Jisoo learned what was happening, she broke down crying. I thought I would die wearing these bands, she said. I thought my children would be born into slavery with no hope of freedom. That will never happen now, Nari told her. The plan was set for the next evening during the shift change. Teams of freed Villani would move through each section of the Tio station, using the pulse generators to free their people. Everything had to happen quickly, before the Empire's sensors could detect the missing signals from the bands. But as the time approached, Jiwon began to worry. 300 people was a lot to coordinate. If even one team was caught or delayed, the whole plan could fail. The night before the liberation, he sat in his room checking his equipment one more time. There was a soft knock on his door. It was So-young, the young worker who had been marked for punishment during the inspector's visit. Nari had freed her 3 days ago. "I wanted to thank you," she said quietly. "Before you came, I thought about ending my life rather than face the pain chambers. Now I have hope again." "Everyone deserves to be free," Ji-won said. "The others don't understand why you're helping us," So-young said. "Humans and Villani have never been friends. Your species could have just stayed neutral while we suffered." Ji-won thought about that. "Maybe that's the difference between humans and the Empire," he said. "When we see suffering, we try to fix it. We don't walk away." The next evening, as the day shift workers headed to their quarters and the night shift prepared to start work, 20 teams of freed Villani moved through the station. Each team carried one of Ji-won's pulse generators. Ji-won and Nari went to the main power center, where the largest group of workers was stationed. This was the most dangerous part of the plan, because the power center was heavily monitored. "Ready?" Ji-won asked. Nari nodded. "Let's free our people." They began moving through the power center, approaching workers one by one. Each time Ji-won used the pulse generator, another Villani experienced freedom for the first time in decades. But as they reached the 20th worker, alarms began to sound throughout the station. "We've been discovered," Nari said. Through the station's communication system, an angry voice boomed. "All workers report to your stations immediately. Any worker found outside their assigned area will be severely punished." Ji-won looked around at the partially freed workers. Half still wore their bands. If they stopped now, those people would remain enslaved. "We keep going," he said. "We finish what we started." The alarms grew louder as Imperial guards ran through the station corridors, but it was too late to stop what had already begun. In the power center, Ji-won and Nari continued freeing workers, even as armed guards searched nearby sections. Each freed Villani immediately used their restored abilities to help others. They could sense which workers still wore active bands and guide the liberation teams to them. Through the station's telepathic network that was rapidly forming among the freed workers, reports came in from every section. The central dining hall, all workers freed. The engineering decks, liberation complete. The mining operations, still in progress but moving fast. Commander Woo Jin, the station's military leader, finally reached the power center with 6 guards. He found Ji-won removing the bands from the last group of workers. "Stop immediately," Woo Jin commanded, raising his energy weapon. "Step away from those workers." Ji-won stood up slowly, holding his hands where the commander could see them. Behind him, Nari and 20 other freed Villani workers stood ready. "You don't understand what you're doing, human," Woo Jin said. "These bands maintain order and discipline. Without them, these workers will be dangerous and uncontrollable." "You mean they'll be free," Ji-won said. "Freedom is chaos. The Empire brings order to the galaxy. The Empire brings suffering." As they spoke, more Imperial guards arrived. Soon, Ji-won and the freed workers were surrounded by armed soldiers. "Surrender now," Woo Jin said, "and your punishment will be less severe." That was when Haewon stepped forward from the group of freed Villani. She was older than the others, with silver hair and kind eyes. But when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had once been a leader. "Commander," she said, "you should surrender to us." Woo Jin laughed. "You are unarmed workers. We have energy weapons and military training." "We have something better," Haewon said. "We have our abilities back." She raised her hand, and every light in the power center began to pulse and flicker. The energy weapons in the guards' hands started to overheat, becoming too hot to hold. The other freed Villani joined her. Together, they took control of the station's entire electrical system. Lights went out in some areas and blazed brightly in others. The magnetic locks on doors throughout the station clicked open. "Impossible," Woo Jin said, dropping his weapon as it burned his hands. "Your technology suppression should prevent this." "Your technology suppression was broken by a human mechanic with basic tools," Haewon said. She gestured toward Ji-won. "This man reminded us that sometimes the simplest solution is the right one." At that moment, Inspector Donghyuk's voice crackled over the communication system from his ship in orbit above the station. "Commander Woo Jin, Report your status immediately. Our sensors show massive electromagnetic anomalies throughout the station. Wu Jin activated his communicator with shaking hands. Inspector, we have a situation. The Villani workers have somehow removed their control bands. They're using their natural abilities against us. That's impossible, Dongyuk replied. Those bands can only be removed with Imperial authorization codes and specialized equipment. Jiwan stepped forward and took the communicator from Wu Jin. Inspector, this is Jiwan, the human mechanic. Your impossible bands had a very simple weakness. They were secured with basic electromagnetic locks that any repair technician could bypass. There was a long silence before Dongyuk responded. You're lying. Our engineers assured us the locking mechanism was unbreakable. Your engineers were wrong. They were so focused on advanced technology that they forgot about simple mechanical principles. This changes nothing, Dongyuk said angrily. I will call for reinforcements. Imperial battleships will reduce that station to space dust before we allow this rebellion to spread. Haywin took the communicator. Inspector, you should know that we've already sent signals to every Villani colony in this sector. The liberation technique is being shared through our telepathic networks. By tomorrow, thousands of our people will be free. And you should know, Jiwan added, that we're sending the technical specifications to human colonies as well. Every mechanic in the galaxy will know how to break your unbreakable locks. Through the power center's windows, they could see Dongyuk's ship preparing to leave orbit. But instead of calling for reinforcements, the inspector seemed to be retreating. He's running, Nari said with satisfaction. He knows the Empire's control depends on fear and the belief that resistance is impossible. Once people see that their technology can be defeated with simple tools, everything changes. Over the following hours, reports came in from across the sector. Villani workers on mining stations, farming colonies, and industrial platforms were being freed by teams of humans and Villani working together. The liberation was spreading faster than the Empire could respond. Commander Wu Jin and his guards were locked in holding cells, their own weapons turned against them by the freed Villani. They would be released unharmed when rescue ships arrived. But they would carry news of the rebellion back to the Empire's core worlds. As dawn approached on Kepler Station, Jiwan stood in the main viewing area watching the sunrise. Nari joined him along with Haiwan and many other freed workers. What happens now? Nari asked. Now we teach others, Jiwan said. We make sure every oppressed person in the galaxy knows that freedom is possible. Sometimes it just takes looking at the problem from a different angle. Haiwan smiled. For 40 years, we tried to fight the Empire with the same kind of thinking that enslaved us. We looked for complex solutions to defeat their complex technology. We never thought to try something simple. That's the thing about humans, Jiwan said. We're good at finding simple solutions to complicated problems. Maybe that's our gift to the galaxy. Through the station's communication array, messages were already being sent to resistance groups on dozens of worlds. The technical specifications for the electromagnetic pulse generators were being shared freely. Instructions for building the tools from common spare parts were being translated into hundreds of languages. The Empire will try to stop this, Nari said. They'll try, Jiwan agreed. But it's too late. The knowledge is already spreading. And once people know that their chains can be broken, they'll never stop trying. He looked at his simple electromagnetic pulse generator, the tool that had started a galactic revolution. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is just a screwdriver in the right hands. As the sun fully rose over Kepler Station, freed Villani workers began the task of rebuilding their home into something better. They would make it a place of learning and freedom, where humans and Villani could work together as equals. And throughout the galaxy, in workshops and repair bays and hidden meeting places, other mechanics and engineers were already building their own pulse generators, preparing to free more slaves with the power of simple human ingenuity.